This is the story of the very first pioneer settlers in what is now known as Waterloo Region. In February of 1769, Pennsylvania Dutch couple Barbara Kaufman and her husband Joseph Schoerg welcomed their third and final son, bestowing upon him the family name Joseph Schoerg. In 1792, the eldest sibling, John Schoerg, passed away suddenly, leaving behind his wife, Elizabeth Betzner, and their infant son, Samuel Jr. Joseph, being single at the time, was quickly married to Elizabeth and took Samuel Jr. in as his own son. The couple would have 4 more children before the turn of the century. Joseph Schoerg decided he needed a change and room to expand. He started prospecting vast, empty swaths of land in southwestern Ontario with his father-in-law, Samuel Betzner. In 1799, the pair found 2 parcels of land fronting onto the Grand River and decided they were perfect. Joseph, his wife, and 5 children at the time moved from Pennsylvania to what was then known as Beasley Block. Samuel Betzner also moved his wife Maria and their 5 children to the lot adjacent to Joseph's. The land along the Grand River was gifted to the Six Nations in 1784. But by 1798, 3 blocks of land had been sold off, later becoming Waterloo, Woolwich, and Dumfries Township. It is in one of these blocks that Joseph Schoerg purchased 200 acres of untouched land from Richard Beasley, who acquired it from the Six Nations, turning it into a working farm. The 2 families are accredited with building the first permanent settlement in inland Upper Canada. In 1801, Joseph and Elizabeth welcomed a son they named David. He is reported to be the first non-native born in the area. It is around this time that the Schoergs changed their last name to Sherk. Settlement of the area began at the turn of the century, with Joseph and his brother-in-law Samuel D. Betzner leading the development of the area. The first school was built in 1802, and an influx of Pennsylvania Dutch began moving into the area, buying an estimated 60,000 acres of land. In 1805, Joseph gave up part of his land to create a cemetery, where some of the area's first pioneers still rest today. The Homestead was built in 1830. It sits at the top of a hill with views of the Grand River. The building is an example of Mennonite Georgian style, constructed with handmade brick and a wood frame addition in the back made in 1912, sitting on top a granite stone foundation. A bank barn was built using the same stonework foundation, but it no longer stands. The farm was handed down through several generations, over time being severed into multiple lots that were sold off over the years. The bank barn and home were designated heritage assets in 1996, but were left vacant and abandoned for almost a decade after a large portion of the original farmland was purchased by Patrick George and JHS Properties, a development company. JHS had no plans in place at the time for the buildings and let them decay. The bank barn was torn down in 2004 without warning or a demolition permit. It was replaced with a memorial plaque. An application to turn the former farm into a subdivision was approved in September of 2007, but followed by a land exchange for the land the barn foundation sat on. The city traded 4 nearby parcels of land, which were appraised to exceed the value of the one the city got in return, and $30,000. This was considered a fair deal in order to preserve the cultural and heritage value. The property the farmhouse sat on was not part of this deal. It remained owned by JHS. 2 months later, an order to remedy an unsafe building was issued for the farmhouse, noting serious structural decay on the summer kitchen annex. An engineering report was created, recommending a complete demolition of the wood structure. It was partially stabilized and boarded up. After several more years of negotiation between the city and Patrick George went nowhere, a work order was issued in 2011, trying to force repairs on the heritage property. The order was appealed and extended until 2012. But 2012 came and went with no action. The farmhouse continued to sit abandoned while a subdivision of multi-million-dollar homes popped up around it. Current listings for the Pioneer Ridge neighborhood show nothing less than $1.2 million. In 2017, the rear portion of the building was demolished after it was declared structurally unsound. JHS used this time to strip the home down to the studs, leaving it a hollow shell at the cost of approximately $100,000. JHS claimed to have blueprints for a restoration in the works and gave a timeline of 6 to 7 months. City Council approved several alteration permits for the lot, including allowing an addition to the back of the home, none of which made any difference. Years went by, and the historic shell continued to sit empty, was often broken into by vandals, was left exposed to the elements, and even more structural damage occurred. The veranda tore away from the building and collapsed entirely. The City of Kitchener finally took action in 2019 under the Property Standards Bylaw and began the process of stabilizing the exterior, along with encouraging JHS to turn the property over to a new owner. I actually visited the site on January 11th of 2021 and was saddened to see that JHS still owns the property and has demolished even more. The roof and back wall were completely removed, and the former homestead is now nothing more than 3 brick walls exposed to the elements, while a new house is currently under construction right across the street.